For the first time since the days of Renault 5 racing, Renault is providing a platform for drivers to convert road cars into racers to make an affordable transition into competitive racing. The Michelin-backed series truly is a Clio Cup for the masses and reaches out to drivers either starting out in motorsport or those without the budget to race in the high-level Renault UK Clio Cup supporting the British Touring Car Championship. In 2014, the Road Series evolves into a full championship. The Michelin Clio Cup Series with Pro Tyre provides exciting yet affordable racing across a wide range of experience and abilities. The races come from diverse motorsport backgrounds. For example, Sam Random comes from karting, Tommy Osgaard raced in Formula Renault single-seaters, whilst Jake Honour, on the other hand, is a track day enthusiast who has become a racing driver. The one thing they all have in common is they all converted their races from Renault Sport Clio 197 road cars. Running converted road cars can significantly reduce the cost of entering racing compared to competing in purpose-built Clio Cup race cars. In Jake Honour's case, he already had the car. It was just fitting the right parts from the series kit plus the mandatory roll cage to make it race ready. Now that we have spoken about the championship, it's time to watch the Michelin Clio Cup Series How to Build Your Car film, where we guide you through the various stages in converting your road car into a fully fledged Michelin Clio Cup Series racer.
Hi, I'm Andrew Gardner.
I'm Nicky Finlayson.
And we are Monster Sport Europe, and today we are converting our Renault Sport Clio 197 into the Clio Cup Series road race car. Let's get started!
So Andrew, if we're looking to get into the Michelin Clio Cup Series, where would we go around finding our Clio car?
It depends on budget, but you could start as looking on eBay or auction sites or Auto Trader, obviously. On the other hand, if you know people in the business, you could find an accident damaged one. The accident damaged one ideally needs to be light damage, so not rolled. You don't want anything that's excessively damaged, because then your chassis is going to be affected. So ideally you get a light damaged one like this one that we bought that had a small front end on the corner, damaged light, and it's just cosmetic. So we had that repaired, and that's a nice cheap option as well.
Nick's now going to tell us a little bit more about the regulations of the Clio Cup Series.
Hi, yes. Initially, when the kit's bought from Monster Sport Europe, we will supply a build book, which will help the customer in the various stages of preparation of the car. The championship is controlled by a set of comprehensive regulations. The number one rule of these regulations is that the build manual must not be deviated from. It must be followed in all respects. We want to make sure that this championship is a driver championship. It's down to driver ability and not car preparation. So that is the one rule of the regulations that we really want to impress on everybody, that the build manual is followed to the T.
Okay, and as a starting kit, what kind of price range are we looking at to come to yourselves and buy the kit to then put into our cars?
The kit price is £3,760 plus the VAT. The cage can be bought from Mark Fish Motorsport. He is the safety devices Renault outlet in the UK, and the cage price is around £1,000 mark. So
all in all then, you're looking for, if you've already got your Clio car, you're looking for about under £5,000 then to start racing?
That's correct, yeah. For under £5,000 you can be in there with the big boys.
So now that we have spoken about the regulations and some avenues in which you can acquire your car, it's time to start the first stage of the conversion, stripping the interior. When starting to strip the interior, work from the B-pillar towards the boot, undoing screws and clips where necessary. If any of the panels do not have a visible screw, they will generally be a pull-off panel. When removing the door cards and rear quarter panels, you need to disconnect the speakers as they are attached to the bodywork and not to the panels. Once these parts are removed, then proceed to remove the front seats and the carpet, working your way towards the dashboard. In regards to removing the dashboard, detach all the plastics from the centre console first, then remove the left and right end panels of the dashboard where the doors close. Take out the stereo, air vents and the dashboard finishing trims, then dislodge the glove box and steering column. After which, start to think about removing the clock binnacle. This is removed with a gentle tug, and then once the clock binnacle is removed, you can start to look at the clock panel itself by pulling away from the top first. Remove all the dashboard fixing screws until the dash becomes loose. It can be a time-consuming job. Once the dash is loose, you should start to think about removing the steering column. The main fixture is located in the footwell, and then it's just a matter of disconnecting the wiring looms that are connected to the column. Once the steering column is out, you can concentrate on removing the other fixtures that surround the dash, and then, in theory, the dashboard should clip out of place. Now we have a completely stripped car. In real time this took just under an hour, so a fairly quick job to complete. Andrew from Monster Sport is going to talk us through removing the steering wheel from the column, as it can be a surprisingly tricky job.
Stripping the interior of the steering wheel can be a bit of an issue if you don't know what you're doing. There's no bolts or anything around the rear of the steering wheel to indicate how to remove it. What you need to do is locate this little hole at the base of the steering wheel, and you want to have a small flat-headed screwdriver and you just push it through the covering of the steering wheel straight up inside. What that will do, that will push this lower retaining clip up, allowing you to pull the bottom of the airbag away from the steering wheel. That'll then unclip from the top. So if you look at it from that angle, so you'd have the screwdriver going up from the rear of the steering wheel, push the clip, pull the bottom part of the airbag towards you, which will release.
The car is now prepped and ready for the dry fitting of the roll cage. The first things to do prior to any welding is to disconnect the battery, ECU, drop the fuel tank out of the car and remove the wheel arch lines to prevent a fire. Prior to fitting the cage, you'll need to carry out preparation work on the body shell, starting with the dash support bar as shown in the film. For more information regarding the dash support bar, please refer to the Safety Devices Roll Cage Installation Manual.
With the front edge there, you have to mark the floor, you have to drill a 20mm hole, for that nut there has to sit down through the floor. Do you understand? So we've now got to drill this, otherwise the plate, if you can see the gap there. So we've basically got to drill a hole so that nut sits down into the floor.
Before dry fitting the roll cage feet into their respective positions, refer to the Safety Devices Manual. You will notice from the installation manual that the B pillar and the C pillar base plates utilise existing standard fixing points. Once bolted in these positions, they can be tacked in place prior to dry fitting the roll cage.
Multi-point. So this is now what holds the roll cage. Rather than it just be bolted to the floor, it's bolted around the pillars just to give the shell a bit more rigidity. Also make it slightly stronger. Makes the car stiffer, so you get better handling. But, I mean, it took us an hour or so to struggling to work out where these plates went. So also you just get a plate that's cut, and it took a bit of time to work out where they were. Obviously the next one will be a lot easier because you know basically once you've got the interior stripped out, you know where you're aiming for, so you can clean up that part there, and you save yourself hours. So although this has been quite slow, for sure the next one you'd knock a couple of hours off it easy. So we had to drill some holes here to countersink the nuts into. So in hindsight, it actually didn't affect the fuel tank because it's actually double skinned. But obviously you wouldn't know that the first time without actually drilling the hole. Other than that, we had to take another little piece off the dash bar just to give us a bit of extra clearance on the A-bar, but apart from that, it's as per instructions.
So in terms of stages now, all that remains to do now is just to tighten up the roll cage and weld it then?
All that's left to do now is finish this multi-point. There's two multi-points in the roof, one on the front of the A-bar just behind the dashboard. Get those lined up, take the roll cage back out and fully weld all the feet in. But inherently now the roll cage is, well, it is sat exactly where it would sit, but it's the finished article. It's just a case of going around and fully seam welding all the feet. Yeah, so up here, when you get it to this position, you're putting it back in, you might have to sort of do that to it.
Yeah, to get it to go.
And then get Andy in the back to give it a kick with his foot to slot it in. Basically now, that's gone right way back, which is taken off the feet, obviously. Yeah. So now what we need to do, which is easier said than done, is get this slipper joint back like that, which then releases these two pieces. Yeah? Right. So now, we should
Peachy.
So that's how. Basically, and when you put it all back together, do as we've done now, reversal. So put that in, get that as far back as you can, put this side in, then that side, and build all this half up into the roof as much as you can, and then bring that into it. To be fair, you might be able to just put this one side in, and get it bolted on its multi-point so it holds itself in.
That's a good idea,
And then put the dash in from that side, and you should be able to pretty much work out what you need to cut.
Yeah.
And obviously then just mirror it for the other side.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
So in theory this should just all slide forward, and you won't be putting washers there.
No.
I've realised what they got us to do is put the washers there to give you some free play.
To give you that space.
Yeah, so I put a washer between there and the cage, so there was an air gap of say 3 mil either side.
Yeah.
When you put it in, forget the washers, just put the bolt in and it'll basically pull that skin to the roll cage. So if you build it tight initially, you'll never get it. You'll have no movement to get anything in and out.
Yeah. Right, tilt forward. That's on.
Footing over there. Got it, Andy?
Yeah.
That's it. That's the hard work done.
After dry fitting the cage, you then remove it. Fully weld the feet and base plates into position, ensuring there is no break in the weld. It's of the utmost importance that whoever welds your car must ensure it's of a professional standard and must meet the requirements of the series scrutineer. Any substandard welding will result in the car failing a technical scrutineering, which obviously means that your car cannot be raced as it will be deemed unsafe. And here we have the finished roll cage. This is what it looks like when all the respective feet and base plates are in the correct positions. Stage 3. Monster Sport's very own Nicky Finlayson is going to talk us through how to fit the suspension kit.
The front suspension set for the Clio 197 comprises of two spherical top mounts, two front springs, top cap, bottom spacer, two inserts. Beware in the kit that the kit comes with an additional top circlip that is already supplied on the insert, so it's just a spare, doesn't need to be used. Two strut body seals, 4 DU bushes, these are tricky little blighters to fit, spring bottom seat, spring locking ring, making sure that the locking ring side with the step is the one that sits against the bottom of the bottom platform. Two bodies, two new through bolts, nuts and washers. The inserts come with a bottom locking nut attached, and the kit comes with two additional. Now these, the two of these filters per body, strut body. Be very careful, as it's a tapered thread. Fit it using a dab of blue Loctite, but do not over tighten, as they will shear off easily just above the thread line. Just a little nip with a bit of blue Loctite. The first thing on building the suspension, if you're going to do it yourself, it's better to put these in the freezer overnight. And then prior to fitting the bearings in the top mounts, these need to go in the oven 150 degrees for about 15 minutes. The other items supplied in the kit as part of the kit that aren't used are 6 cap bolts, 6 beveled washers and 6 flat washers. These are for the top mounts but due to the modified adapters that go in the body shell, these aren't used, but we'll show you later. The bolts that are used are supplied in the kit. Okay, first to install the DU bushes. We've had this tool made. It's very important that the bush is pressed down the centre of the damper tube. Over to the press. First bush pushed in until it's flush by sitting the DU bush in there on the press bed, pressing down on there. Then we use the special tool. That's the tool pressed in as far as it'll go. There's a tight ring at the top for the DU bush to sit in, and then a wider waist which will contain grease shortly, and then a narrower waist again at the bottom, and that'll press the DU bush all the way down until it stops. As you can see, the DU bush is level with the top of the damper body. Now it only needs to go down a small distance. I'll show you. The DU bush needs to be down flush with that lip just inside the damper top body. That one there. It has to be pushed down flush with that, and this recess at the top allows the seal to sit in. Now what we need to do now Just pack the void between the two DU bushes with a long life grease. The next step is to fit the seal. Again, that can be pressed into place or just knocked into place with a hammer. So the seal's fitted flush with the top. A little bit of grease inside the seal. Like that. Bump rubber. Insert the insert through the seal. Make sure that the seal doesn't tip over. That's it. That's it. And just wind the threads will start to come through the bottom of the body on the bottom nut. A little double Loctite, these are critical not to snap them. So don't over tighten. These are little filters, they just allow, when the damper's compressing, allows the air to escape inside the damper body. Little nip. So if we just remove the circlip from the top of the damper. First locking ring on. Spring platform. Spring spacer. Spring. Top mount. Collar, top spring collar, sorry. A bit tricky to get over. Circle it back on. And then just wind the platform up to take up the loose spring. The ride heights of the car will be adjusted later. fitting the top mount bearings, be sure to wear gloves as they will be very hot. Top mounts from the oven, bearings from the freezer, with a little smoothing into place. Into place. Simple as that. The rear damper kit comprises of a new bottom bolt and locking washer, spacer, goes on there, 2 bumper rubbers, 2 dampers, 2 bottom platforms, 2 locking rings, 2 springs, 2 top caps, 2 new nuts and your new top damper rubbers. A lot easier to assemble than the front. Just take your damper, place on your bumper rubber, spring, take your top cap, take your new top rubber, which obviously goes into the car like that. New one goes inside the car, and then tighten it all up with a nut. That's it. The top plate sits in here. The holes in the body are elongated, so it's really important that the top mount is fully clockwise from where you're standing. Fully clockwise. That gets the camber adjusters laterally opposing each other right across the car. If it was turned that way in the slots, the camber adjusters are going to be pointing, affecting the caster as well. So it's very important that it's clockwise all the way. Another 50mm long bolt. We don't use any locking washers, so it's imperative that a little drop of blue Loctite on the threads of the bolt. This one goes underneath, and on top is the top mount. The long bolt goes through the front hole, it goes through the top mount, through the top mount adapter, and then screws into the thread on the bottom plate. don't tighten it up just yet. Swing the top mount. And take one of the machined headed short bolts. Again, little drop of Loctite. And that goes through the top mount adapter plate, not the top mount adapter plate into the bottom. And take another of machine bolts, the blue, and that goes through the inner recessed bolt hole, like that. And screws in, leaving this loose at the moment. Tighten them up, making sure that it's held clockwise and it doesn't slip. Those two can be torqued up 55 pounds-feet. So those two there, it's important that they're Loctited in. Put a little dab on the bottom of, on the bottom of that one as well. But these three will take locking washers and support washers. There's two of the 10x30s. Two 10x30s with locking washers and support washers, and the one long 10x50, same locking washer and support washer. It's all the way down through there. That's your camber adjustment. And when you nip these up on build, just ensure the camber is pushed all the way in to give it maximum. Set the damper off the top nut. When the car's on the ground, always check those are tight. But basically, towing eye, remove the front bumper to fit the towing eye. One thing we advise when the bumper's off is to remove that bolt, and take off the bonnet catch. Doesn't need the bonnet catch anymore because it's got the bonnet pins. Is basically where that hole is there. There's a one behind it which the bonnet pin goes into. The pins out of the bag roughly need 20mm cut off the bottom of them, and then the nut underneath that locks it in is flush with the bottom of the pin. Then it's locked down gently. Pin has to be pushed all the way into the middle of the car. Put the two pins in. Drop the bonnet so it puts a dent where the pin is. Go through the hole saw bigger than the pin, and then go through with a smaller one that just the head of the pin will pass through, and then the bonnet pin, obviously when it's all lined up, rivet it into the bonnet. It comes with screws and clips, but we never use them, they're riveted. Dampers in, that's it fitted back in its standard position. There's a new drop link there, if you can see that shiny nut in front of you, and then there's a rod going down to that joint there in the middle of the picture. That's the shorter drop link that must be fitted. Rear damper in position. Now there is only one issue with this. The rear wheel arches are different to the left and to the right, and the spring is quite close to the bodywork, so what we do is we just beat out where there's a ridge here. It just needs knocked in line with the spring just to free it off a little bit, but again that's just a direct replacement for the one that came off. Standard rear fittings in the boot. You get new ones with the kit, but they're exactly the same as the ones that came off. Changing the rear brake pads, discard the old bolts. You will need a wind back tool to move the piston back in the caliper. New bolts with new Loctite supplied with brake pads. We also advise to remove the wheel arch liners from that point, those 2 points, and there's a little torque screw up there and the one underneath there. And when the wheel arch is removed, grind the little threaded bar that sticks out the arch there, just to ensure that it doesn't gouge into the tyre.
Andrew Gardner, the head technician at Monster Sport Europe, is now going to guide us through a few extra points that the team figured out when they were building their own car.
So another point with the fire extinguisher kit, when you're fitting it through the bulkhead, basically drill a hole, fit a grommet, feed the pipe through. What you then need to go to a sort of a T-piece inside the engine bay, have one nozzle pointing to the rear of the engine, and then route the other pipework up to the injectors. And that's just a bit more of a fail-safe. I mean, being a road car, if you do have an accident, the car's own systems will cut the fuel line, but this is just like a extra safety measure. So you have one at the front towards the extinguishers, towards the injectors, and one at the back of the engine. On the same note as the extinguisher push button up the top here, the rear of the switch isn't waterproof, so we're still yet to do it, but what you need to do is just get some clear silicone sealant and just run it around the back of the switch, just into the little crevices, over the little terminals, and that will just give it enough waterproofing. Okay, when you're fitting the seatbelt eyes, so the supporting bracket for the seatbelt loop, they just go through the floor. Obviously the plates are supplied in the kit, obviously the eyes come with a seatbelt. When you're fitting them, just be careful, make sure you look on the underside of the car, because there's brake lines and fuel lines on the driver's side. So just obviously make sure you know where you're drilling and it's not going to go through a pipe. Right, when you're doing the pull cable for opening and closing, opening the door, we've modified the standard cable. When you remove the door panel, remove the cable, there's two clips, you just push them together and then that removes itself from the standard door handle on the door card. What we've done, we've got a small pipe cutter and we've just really slowly gone through the plastic outer housing of the cable. What you do is you go through that, and then after that there's a metal strands that surround the inner cable, and then we've basically sort of used a little die grinder and cut them back. Just be very careful not to hit the inner cable. We've then drilled a small hole through the main plastic casing. Just use the standard screw into the standard fixing in the door, and what that allows it to do is just to support the soldered end, and this pull cable becomes a door opener then. Right, with the door card supplied with the kit, this is for the kit Clio Cup race car, so their pull mechanism is slightly different to ours. I've actually modified the standard pull cable like I did on the other side, but I've extended it, and this is just basically a bit of pull cable for just a pull cable fire extinguisher kit. So I've just lengthened it, attached it further down this end, and then that's nice and easy. That strap isn't supplied in the kit, but you can use anything for that, and that's just a pull door close. So any type of durable strap is good enough. We've also made our own bracket to support the electric window switches. Up to you what you want to do, but you will have to make sure the driver's side does open and close. Oh, okay. Internal cut-off and extinguisher push button. I've literally just modified a bit of carbon fibre to sit inside where the stereo would sit, riveted in, electrical cut-off, extinguisher cut-off. Make sure you can reach these when you're fully strapped into your seat. It's very important you can do that. I've just mounted these here because I think it looks nice. Entirely up to you where you want to mount them, but you must be able to reach them when strapped into the seat. Okay, due to the regulations you can't keep the aircon in a working fashion, just in case you have a front end crash and the gas releases into the atmosphere. So what you need to do is hire an aircon specialist to remove the gas in a safe and controlled way.
Here we have the finished car, fitted with Michelin Pilot Sport 3 treaded tyres, which work great in the wet and the dry, and are the series control tyres. This is your first race in the Clio series. Congratulations.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it's a bit unexpected to be paying a visit down here. Yeah, I only had a few laps in the car before Friday, but I think it's a testament to the car really that by Sunday I'm mixing it with the championship regulars and setting good lap times, got quicker every day, and it's a car that you can really throw around and gives you a lot of confidence, and I think that's reflected in the fact that you know, these guys' first time running it on a race weekend is my first time racing it. We've ended up with a really good result at the end.